Hello, it's Shaun here. I'm the founder and CEO of Glider. We're a payments communication platform and we work with organisations to improve the consumer billing experiences. So, we recognise that the modern consumer's been trained by the likes of Uber and um, other digital experiences where they've largely, improved their lives. And what we've recognised is that typically billers have not kept up with some of these experiences. And so, with that said, we do ultimately recognise that customer experience is a key differentiator for any business in an increasingly competitive environment. And so, what we're looking to do is have a range of conversations with people that work in different areas of this industry and with different backgrounds and experiences to try and flesh out some of their insights and to basically just have a conversation around where things have come from, but also what things might look like in the future. And so today I'm excited to have Jeanelle Mariani with me. So Jeanelle is a customer success manager at CXCOM who provide market-leading and secure communication solutions to various organisations around Australia. And so with that said, welcome, Jeanelle. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for
Would you
having me.
mind just giving us a brief little background about yourself?
Yeah, I'm currently heading up customer success management at CXCOM, as you mentioned. I typically work very proactively with our customers, really just to ensure that their solutions are keeping up with their goals as they evolve, and also that they're continuously extracting value from their solutions. So I would say customer success combines elements of account management, business consulting, and being a bit of a solution evangelist. My background is really across sales, training, business development, and corporate partnerships across the private and not-for-profit sector. And for the last 11 years, I have owned cocktail bars and restaurants.
Amazing. Quite a diverse kind of background there, right? So
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we wanted to get you on to have a chat. So, given your current role and the organisation's focus on contact centres, what would you say, or do you feel like has been the biggest change that's happened in that experience, from employees potentially, but also consumers in the last few years?
I'd say definitely the omni-channel experience. This is largely driven by customers. I think their expectations have changed. They just want organizations to meet them where they are. So, most people started with voice, but we're seeing a lot more now the use of SMS, live chat, email, social channels being used. So there's a real shift in how people want to interact and contact organizations. So certainly omni-channel, but
Mm.
it would be strange not to mention AI tools. I think AI and just the level of automation that's available now, not only to improve the customer experience, but employee experience as well. I'm really noticing organizations seeing the value of the information that comes through their contact centers. So previously, where they might have thought, agents are dealing with an interaction and moving it on, just understanding what they can glean from those interactions is now moving into marketing, from marketing to operations. So all of those insights, business insights, are now being used across the entire organization. There's the ability to make more data-informed decisions now. Previously, everyone was measuring what they were doing, and now there's a real emphasis on how we're doing it. So it's not just the number of calls, abandonment rates, average handle times. We're now looking at sentiment analysis, key topics. We're measuring our compliance. We're improving our training. So with more information available, I think the shift that I'm seeing is not just on what we've got, but how we're using it. I think both our organizations are also focused on making customer success better, right? So where did your area of focus come from? What inspired you to start Glider?
Yeah, good questions. 2008, I actually co-founded a business called Gamiki, and so 2008 coincided with the release of the first version of the iPhone, and so at that point in time, mobile consumers were just becoming a thing, right? And so organisations were really rethinking their models and the way that they engage with those consumers in a increasingly mobile world. And so, we were working with the likes of the ABC and the ASX and a bunch of other organisations where we were reimagining these experiences and building, mobile optimised solutions for addressing some of these challenges. And it was one of those customers or approached us with a problem, which was origin energy and how do we, collect in a more efficient way some of these, I guess, overdue payments. And so we looked at that as a problem that was quite glaring in terms of its, the size and broad nature of it, and leveraged our skill set in building these enterprise platforms, but with I guess core pillars or foundations of data, identity, and payments with a layer of CX over the top. And so, particularly the CX piece is, where we in that mobile consumer environment excel and have brought that through to what Glider is today, which is obviously a new entity that's been spun out from that Gamiki business about 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's there was an obvious need then in the market that you could meet, but that point of difference, I think, is the CX overlay to not just saying we can make it seamless for you to make payments, but what does that experience look like, for the
Yeah.
customer?
And, we learn a lot around consumer behaviors in a mobile environment. I think Apple's a great example of someone that can, make the complex really simple. And, it's easier said than done. And there's a whole lot of things that need to come together behind the scenes to deliver that seamless experience. And so we've brought a lot of those learnings and insights and, working with some of those big brands and, some of those products are no doubt the biggest trafficked still in Australia today.
Yeah. Well, it's been some time now you're in this space. How has your sort of vision for customer experience changed over the last few years, do you think?
Yeah. So Glider's vision ultimately is to be the smartest way for a customer to make a bill payment. So smart being efficient, more secure, in addition to an environmentally friendly approach, but also importantly, the best customer and employee experience. So often the employee experience can be forgotten or there's not an emphasis on it, but certainly giving them the tools, to your point around serving omni-channel experiences. It's no longer a call center, right? It's a contact center because of all these different ways that they need to work. And so giving them the best tools to do their job, and more efficiently as well. So, our focus in terms of that vision for CX is, as I said, we're very narrow. We're looking to solve, it's a big problem, but it's a narrow focus in terms of where, these payment communications can serve to deliver those outcomes for those organisations. So,
Yeah.
building on top of all of our heritage in mobile to then build out what Glider is today. That vision really has remained the same. Delivering the best CX, but as I said, we've just put that bill payment lens across everything we do.
I think you made a great point there too about just the name of contact centers have changed. We used to call them call centers. So just that small nuance actually says a lot about how much this space has shifted, small
Absolutely.
nuance, but impactful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I often talk to it as well. Like it's an obvious one as well. Like right when you think about it, that but to your point, the consumer's the ones that's driving this, right? Like organisations need to meet the consumer in those moments where they want to engage, and so if they're like my mum, her her preference would actually be to go in store, but if she does
Yeah.
call she needs help, and so she's probably not going to be the one that messages via its web chat or whatnot. But a younger demographic, and you need to be able to provide the experience that matters for each person who's an individual on their terms, basically.
Yeah. Part of my work with our customers in helping them serve their customers is just to remind them to meet their customers where they are.
Um, and so in your current role, you help customers look at their CX across customer comms, which would be quite broad and varied in terms of the way that might be delivered in terms of a strategy. But so where do payments typically fit into those customer comms from the end-to-end CX perspective?
Look, I think customers they just want clear communications about payment. They want a seamless transaction. They want it to feel secure. They don't want to think too much about it, to be honest. They just want it to be easy. But when we talk about payments, this is just a point in the customer journey that you cannot get wrong. It's dangerous to get it wrong. A clunky experience or low faith in personal information, being secure, can not only be reputationally damaging, but financially damaging for a business as well. For many of our customers, they take recurring payments, and in managing that, the way they inform or communicate to their customers about those payments, that's what sets them apart in the market. It also leads to better retention. So that communication around payments piece is really important. One of the things I love about Glider, and probably one of the reasons we partnered with you guys, is that our customers can create their own fully branded, personalized payment communications and reminders so that their customers can make payments, in any channel they want, at any moment they want. Uh,
Yeah, and I guess increasingly you're seeing, a number of pretty highly visible, data breaches and whatnot. And so consumers these days are really aware of how they're sharing that, particularly in a payments context, personal information, and they want to feel like there's a level of trust in the way that you're handling it, and you're emphasizing the importance of handling that data in the right way too. So again, bring it back to the consumer, you can see why these things that are happening, those organizations need to be able to provide the experience that they're expecting. Otherwise they'll, if they've got the choice, vote with their feet and move to a competitor.
Absolutely. It can be as simple as communications being clunky or badly formatted, and people think something's a scam or something, just the quality of the
Yep.
communications and the experience they have.
And so outside of CXCOM, and the corporate world, for a moment, so you co-own a hospitality business. Can you tell me a
Yes.
little bit more about that, and I guess some of the experiences or learnings that you've been able to bring through into your corporate career as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. Hospitality, I think, is a great industry with a very immediate feedback loop. I've had cocktail bars and restaurants for the last 11 years, in Melbourne, and now recently in the Sunshine Coast. And I think, as someone who's very passionate about customer experience, it's the sort of industry that, keeps you on your toes. I think the general public is very knowledgeable, and they feel very knowledgeable and qualified to critique food and drink. So I think that's what makes it so exciting when you get it right. People's expectations are high if they're going out and they're treating themselves. So that CX overlay, whether it's hospitality or contact centers, I think it's relevant everywhere. One example, if we're thinking about payments, I see this a lot in hospitality, but a lot of restaurants and bars, they don't like to bill split. You'll see it on the menu. We don't split bills for groups. And if you're there with a group of friends, it's the thing that happens right at the end of the night. So you've just had a great experience, and now it's time to take a payment. And we've always done bill splitting, and I know a lot of businesses hate to do it because it's not as easy for them. But it's a bugbear for me because, as a customer, I need you to make it easy for me,
Mm.
to pay a bill. So if I've had a great night with friends and I get to the end, and now there's this clunky experience, and we're all standing around the counter and trying to figure out who's going to pay who, somebody's got to pay, I've got to transfer you. It's not pleasant. And now we've gone from a really beautiful experience to now we're leaving on that energy where it was just clunky and sticky and not fun. So, anytime there's a process around payments or a customer experience touch point, any sort of resistance or friction is just not a good experience. I think about my own experience, even with restaurants. We saw this a lot after COVID, where some places introduced a time limit. You can book for 2 hours and there's a minimum spend. I felt like this just absolutely went against what hospitality is supposed to be. And no one wants to go out and check their clock while they're sitting with friends.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was just like a behavioral change. So if I was going out, I wouldn't book restaurants that enforce that because I knew it would impact my experience. So there is this, for some brands and for some contact centers, clunky experiences might not be immediately visible, the impact of it, but it is having an impact. There's behavioral changes that happen when businesses might make an experience a little bit difficult does flow on to consumer experience. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. We're all in the experience economy on some level. And I think empathy is central to our work. So whether it's, me trying to contact an agent, get my car serviced, or order a drink, I put myself in the customer's shoes and think, what experience would I want? I think now with the technology available, we have a really good opportunity to not just meet the basic expectations, but actually exceed expectations.
Yes, I'm going to have to find an excuse to get up to the Sunshine Coast and sample this
You will,
experience.
you will. But perhaps building on this theme, what do you think contact centers can learn from other industries and areas like commerce or retailers?
Yeah, I actually talked to this a little bit. Particularly, in our world of making a bill payment, we do, I guess, look at those sophisticated e-commerce or retailers. That checkout experience. That they really understand the importance of um, you know experiences to sell, basically, right? And so fractions of a second can ultimately be the difference between a sale and an abandoned cart. And so, thinking about how that comes into someone takes the time to call in or to chat, and providing the information they need as quick as they can to get in and get out, basically, to give them what they need. And so using the right tools and creating those experiences accordingly. I think, to your point, contact centers have rapidly evolved in the last few years. And I think that there's still a big variance, in industries, but also natures of businesses. And so there's a lot of work that can still be done to provide, a more unified experience across the board there.
Absolutely. It's I think about that e-commerce experience, and we've all been there. You just so much as browse at a product, and now you're in that orchestrated journey with them. So
Mm.
it's much more sophisticated than it's
Yeah.
ever been. How do you think Glider approach customer experience differently to other companies in this space? Uh,
That's a good question. So, you know, we work with a range of organizations, and typically our platform is embedded within their existing tech stack. So we're not replacing anything. It's largely about extending capabilities. But what we do, to that point around meeting the customer where they want to engage. So basically, we act as a CX layer that embeds on top of all these systems, orchestrates that experience regardless of the stage of a payment journey. So it could be at point of sale, all the way through to actually where we started the business was super late stage, payments. And so our system can dynamically adjust that experience on the context of the situation. But also, the important piece here is that, we're not focused just on the contact center. Um, we're delivering this unified experience that goes across all those touch points. So from that customer, perspective, they can reach out and expect the same experience regardless of where they are, wanting to engage on the channels or devices, or in those moments that matter for them. And so that's where we see ourselves as providing a differentiated experience.
yeah, which is definitely, I think, what we noticed and what set you apart for us. And the entire way you've thought about the end-to-end process, not just
Mm.
solving the problem, but then how the customer will feel about it at each point. I think is the part that really stood out to us too.
Yeah, and just, I guess, one last point on it. Like, we, as a business, um, you know, with the heritage we have building robust but scalable platforms, we do increasingly see the importance of the way that our system's been architected to deliver that flexibility that you need to create these experiences. And so, as one example, we are being rolled out into this financial services group, and the alternative platform that they were using prior, their legacy system, would take them between 6 and 8 weeks to stand up a a payment portal or host payment
Mhm.
page, and we're doing that in 2 hours, right? And so there's significant improvements that can be realised from choosing the right technology, like in the architecture of that system as well. So we're able to deliver that CX experience because of the right foundations that we've been able to architect behind the scenes. And so, in terms of key challenges that you guys are seeing, what would be a couple of common themes that you might have come across?
You mentioned it before, and it's probably very topical. Just a sense of security and safety of information. This is something that a lot of organizations now is top of mind. We talk about PCI compliance and anyone handling credit cards. A lot of our customers, and this is obviously where Gliders come in for us, helping a lot of our customers to achieve that level of security and safety. We're having conversations with most customers now about safety and security of their data and how they handle people's information. Obviously, the emergence of AI tools has brought about a different set of challenges. So most of our customers are just trying to understand sort of when, where, how to implement some of these tools. I feel a real sort of sense of urgency with organizations who don't want to be left behind in this space, but they're also not sure how to catapult ahead. And we sort of work with everyone on this sort of walk, run, fly model because, you just can't have the shiny new toys. You have to make sure that at all times that experience is right for the customer. So the challenge here is balancing, some customers will come out of an exec meeting and go, we need a bot on our website. We
Yeah,
need to do these things. We need to automate a process. But getting that right, it can't be rushed either. So working in a really considered way, I think that's been very, very topical at the moment.
sure.
I think in the general market, I definitely see businesses facing a little bit of an awakening. I think post COVID, people say that loyalty died, that, customers they don't have patience. They're not happy to wait for you to catch up. Um, Organizations that are tied to legacy systems or legacy ways of working, I think they're hitting the challenges of trying to attract and retain customers because people will go where the better experience is.
And I guess from a best practice perspective, is there anyone that you would say has great, experiences or CX experiences in this space?
Uh, You mentioned Uber before, and I think that's a great example, particularly just how they came to market and how disruptive that was, because they took a age-old sort of process that was happening. And when they entered the market, the strength was their offering. They were saying we could do so much better, so we will. And so they offered so many options, even to be able to rate your driver or that experience there in the moment, kind of keeping everybody in the present of that experience. I think they started a trend that has been followed since. E-commerce, we also mentioned before, some of the journeys I've been on, just browsing a product, point of purchase. I think the thing I notice the most is the hyper personalization. If you are a repeat customer, you want to be known to that brand. People expect to be known now. So if I'm going back to make a repeat purchase, I don't want to repeat any of my information. I want you to send me offers that are relevant to me. I want you to make that process incredibly easy.
Yeah, and obviously Uber's a very high profile example of disrupting the old world with a new world approach. With the payment lens, we obviously try to do at Glider is remove friction from the payment process. They smashed that one, right? Like it
Yeah,
was
you don't
a
have to think
very
about it.
painful experience. Get out of a taxi, you got to fumble around with stuff, and so just they basically removed it. It's in the
Mhm.
background completely now. That's the best part of an Uber. You get out and say, see you
Yeah.
later.
I think we touched on earlier in that, like, payments, it's a necessary process, but you know, I don't want to think about it. I don't even want to notice that I've gone through the payment process. And I think that's what they did really well is that now you do your rides and you don't notice. You're not fumbling around, you're not trying to make a payment. And so while payments are necessary across most aspects of our life, we just want it to happen. We don't want to have to think about it too much.
And I guess, we've talked about what great can look like, but what would you see as a blocker for many or some organisations today to improving that?
I think the blockers for a lot of organizations is just trying to do too much. So, they're thinking and they care about customer experience, and there's lots of ideas and there's lots of things they could do. Uh, but I really try and encourage our customers to maybe do a little less, but do it really well. Look at existing processes that are clunky before you introduce a new AI tool or a chatbot. Is there a process that's already happening that could be easier and you could offer exceptional service? There's a lot of easy, simple things you could do to improve experience. And I think you've got to start there and build on that. Probably in the strategic space, a blocker for organizations is that, when you implement solutions, and particularly in the contact center space, you make this investment up front, you've got great tools, but the business evolves, customers' experience and expectations evolve. So your solution needs to evolve alongside that. Not many organizations have a set optimization budget to make changes, to make improvements. And so, the important work will still get done, but it certainly slows down their progress.
Yeah, for sure. It just caused me to reflect on a couple of projects or engagements we've had over the years, and certainly those small wins are super important, not just for the team that's delivering them, but for to go back to the board and go, here's some progress we're making, and gives everyone the confidence that they're in the right path, and they continues to sort of evolve it, versus trying to do, as you say, these big bang projects with too much happening at once, like and you
Yeah.
don't get that sense of achievement. So.
Yeah, just say to them, just do three small things and nail it. If you want to do a
Mm,
big project, do three small things, because when you do, and they could be incredibly small but meaningful for the organization, you get to celebrate a win, you see success, and you get more organizational buy-in. So if things can move and you're able to execute those and the business sees the value, and I think that constant reflecting back to the customer, that return on investment, this is saving you time, this is saving you resources,
yep.
this is making your customers happier.
Yeah. And I think one other point I was going to make around, everything evolving very quickly, I always like to use the, I guess, statement around in digital, the only constant is change. It's ever evolving, and, it's kind of like this snowball that seems to be getting faster and faster, but you need to be able to, you know, not get too overwhelmed. Finding that roadmap and planning and iterating is super important in this agile kind of world that you need to find yourselves in today.
Given your background then with Gamiki and Glider, how do you see technology sort of shaping the future of CX? And what do you think organizations can do now to prepare?
Yeah, well, I think we've touched on a little bit of that just then, right? Like, you need to have a plan, but you need to sort of chip away at it, so to speak. From a technology perspective, it is super important. I talk about having the right building blocks in place. So you need to have the ability to adapt quickly and have flexibility in your approach. And so I think having one big system that does everything isn't necessarily the right approach, because there's going to be some products that are able to do things better because they're very focused or narrow in the jobs that they're doing. So having, I guess, stepping back even to our conversation initially around partnering, like that collaborative approach, like better together, things that work with each other, this open kind of architecture, but it needs to be scalable and obviously secure is super important. But the technology is effectively the enabler for those experiences, but defining what they are and the reason why, not getting caught up in all of the buzz and, hype around AI. And, you could do so much, but bring it back to the customer and the problems, and sort of how we can best meet those needs. And so, once you have that, I guess, defined, the personalization, the leveraging AI, the self-serve, we can adapt to the needs of a customer more easily. And we're also going to be future-proof to be able to, I guess, adapt the organization as those consumer wants, needs, behaviors will evolve as well. There's going to be some big changes, no doubt, over the next few years, and things like AR, VR, Apple, who knows what the next, great device is that they release. But certainly embedding AI into everything you do, being able to use data in a meaningful way, so that we can deliver these experiences at scale. But certainly, regardless of the size of the organization, as a consumer, you want to feel like they get you and they understand you and they're talking to just you, right? So that one-to-one feeling or sense of those needs being met is, I think, where technology and all those bits and pieces that come together can ultimately get to. It's a challenge for any organization. That's why there's so much disruption happening. But technology is becoming more accessible. It's doesn't matter if you're a $10 million business to a $1 billion, you've got access to the same tools largely now. And so it comes down to your creativity and the way that you use those tools to deliver those experiences. And so I think that leveling of the playing field is something that's really interesting, and doesn't matter if it's an onshore or offshore experience, but the ones that can kind of get those experiences right will be in a hyper competitive environment able to stand out and ultimately win.
I think we see a lot of young companies, and like you said, that technology is sort of a great leveler because a lot of people have access to a lot of tools now. Young companies are coming out with this sort of one-upping bigger organizations that do have legacy systems that do take a long time to change. And, they're offering a superior experience because they have access to these tools and they're agile and they're meeting the customer in that space. So we're really seeing that, younger companies who used to take years to sort of build enough funds to even compete in that space, they're offering exceptional experiences. So, it's sort of outshining some of the bigger organizations. Even just when you talk about personalization, we're saturated now in the digital space. We're getting so many messages all the time. And if it's on our social media feed or our inbox, we're being communicated to a lot, and it's constant. So that personalization is the piece that cuts through. So, I had one customer who they had terrible answer rates across a lot of their centers, and I won't give away who they are, but a lot of the phone calls were going unanswered. Staff were busy. So customers would have to call back again, again, and again. And so they decided to introduce a voice bot IVR so that every call would be answered. And they decided that if it's a repeat caller and we've got their details and most of their customers are repeat, then we should know who they are, right? So we've got their mobile number. If they call from that number, we should know. So now when any repeat customers call their business, immediately you'll hear, "Hi, Jeanelle, are you calling for," and whatever the last time they called for, it was booking something in. That entire IVR experience talks them through it. But when you answer a phone and you hear your name immediately, psychologically something happens, and you're engaged in that experience. So this is sort of the level of now expectation and what people want to see and feel. Because if we're going to use that technology, and I'm not talking to a human, but immediately you've identified me, you've put me in the right place, it's a good experience,
Yeah,
So we're
absolutely.
really seeing this happen now.
Yeah, I like that. So I guess it's a great way to close things out from your perspective. Like, what are those emerging trends beyond? Probably personalization is part of that, but that businesses need to start preparing for.
Yeah, definitely the assisted technology. So I think the AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, Agent Assist, speech and text analytics, this is the stuff that allows companies to understand what's driving their customer interactions. And there's a real desire now for companies to know this. Again, we spoke about not just the what we're doing, how many calls are we taking, but now it's what is it about? How often does that customer contact us? How long does it take them to resolve an issue? Can we be proactive about this? So those tools, those emerging tools, I think are going to be a big game changer. We talk a lot about the AI hype. It's just made me think about something that someone shared with me the other day. It was this Gartner graph that talked about the hype cycle of artificial intelligence. And we've been on this huge development stage of AI where lots of products and lots of ways of using it have come to the forefront. And now we're at the peak of our expectations. This is the hype peak. And now over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be a bit of a trough as we degrade all of these tools, learn about what we're playing with, and then we'll have a productivity plateau. So definitely the emerging trend is in this space of how do we make use of everything that's coming at us and that's available. I think mostly in wrapping up, it's kind of been a consistent theme in our conversation, but I think I would really encourage businesses just to work really hard to meet their customers where they are. And, we've harped on about this, but customers' experience is what's going to define loyalty now. And there is nowhere to hide. Everybody is very aware of what's happening in the market. They deal with multiple companies, multiple brands. We go about our day interacting with companies all the time, and probably more than we used to because it's so accessible. I think we're living in a time where the technology exists for agents to have much more meaningful interactions. So for me, I think it will be exciting to sit down a year from now and just sort of see the ripple effect of what all of this has come to.
Mm. Thanks, Jeanelle. I think you've just done a great job of summarising some of those key aspects of our discussion today. Thank you for your time again, Jeanelle. It's been really interesting.
Thank you, Shaun, and thanks for having me today.
Yeah, been a pleasure. All right, look forward to catching up soon.